What's up, marketers? I've gotten a number of your DMs and comments lately asking for advice for new media buyers. So I wanted to make a video all about this to go through my top pieces of advice for new media buyers or people who are really trying to succeed in this career in 2024. I don't gotta say it, a lot's changed. I also invited my friends who are some of the top media buyers in the world to also share some insight. So let's dive into number one. The reality is that you need to be more than just a media buyer.
Instead of just focusing on media buying, you need to focus on a lot more on the growth side of it.
I'd say don't be a media buyer, be a marketer.
I see a lot of media buyers becoming media buyers / creative strategists, which makes a lot of sense because creative is the biggest lever that you have on these platforms now. And that's actually what I did. Or you could be a media buyer that concentrates more on the funnel or does landing page and CRO. I actually think that there aren't enough of these people around right now. And it's one of the number one things that I get asked. So if you're looking for a really good angle or a really good way to prove your value, learn CRO and landing pages. I also see media buyers who are incredibly talented at back-end finances, reporting, analytics, and sifting through data.
As a media buyer, you are responsible for the financial outcome of the business that you're buying for.
Learning, maybe start at the financial side of things, understand the business metrics, understand the actual CPA you need to hit for these accounts.
A growing business really needs these people to be successful. And honestly, I don't have the skill set. I mean, I can, look at the data and analyze it, but asking me to make a report and do the spreadsheet thing, it's a rough time for me, I'm not gonna lie. I also see some media buyers who really just like being in platform. They'll do Facebook ads, TikTok ads, Snapchat ads, whatever, but they'll also do Google ads, which is a huge plus. I'd still say you're probably safer with the top 3 though. Now, the second thing that I wanna talk about is money and getting paid your worth.
Specialization over generalization.
Here's the reality. If you're doing this for money alone, you're not gonna make it in this industry.
When I started, I was working on 5 accounts for free.
And listen, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like money isn't part of the equation. It absolutely is. But I find that the people who really succeed in this career and honestly make a ton of money are the people who genuinely enjoy it and who wanna show up and learn more and constantly challenge themselves. So I'm gonna expose myself a bit. When I first started media buying, I actually charged $50 per hour to manage someone's Facebook ad account. I think sometimes this would round out to like $200, $300, $500 per month per account. If you want to learn more about this, I actually have an entire video that exposed my rates. Something else to note too is that my first full-time media buying job, I think I made about $60K per year, and I was living in New York at that time. So I guess my real piece of advice here is know the going rate, get comfortable and confident with what you're doing, and slowly start to increase your prices. If you're having a hard time deciding on your initial price, leave a comment below and maybe we can generate some more discussion about how to price ourselves as media buyers. And while you're there, like and subscribe. Those things really do help. The next thing I want to talk about is getting that first full-time job. I think all the media buyers who are really worth their salt ended up working full-time at a brand or at an agency. More on that in a second, in one way or another. Corey Dobbins actually has an excellent thread about how to get your first media buying job. And my advice has always been this: work for an agency for as long as you can. You are going to see hundreds of accounts, hundreds of approaches. And if you see something working, you're going to be able to replicate it and try it across different brands. And you're really going to put your theories to the test. There's a reason why I worked for agencies for years.
And I recommend everybody get their career started in an agency because you learn so much.
To start on agency side, I think it's super important. You get a lot of visibility to senior media buyers and senior staff members that are able to provide a depth of knowledge.
Try to learn on someone else's dime. So when I first started as a media buyer, I worked at an agency, and that allowed me to get so much experience working across a broad amount of accounts, learning from other media buyers at the agency, and really get to see how these top performing ad accounts operate.
When I first started, I was at a very small SEO agency and I was just trying to get my hands on an ad account in any way that I possibly could. I was freelancing on the side as well, trying to pick up anything that I could do to get myself in an ad account so that I could say that I had experience, which then helped me get hired at an agency.
And no offense, but I honestly just don't see the same guts and initiative from people who've only worked in-house or only worked as freelancers. Maybe that's a hot take. And number 4, these are the people who really want to advance in their career and start making more money. You need to build your reputation. And really the first thing you need to do is you need to build up your community.
Make friends. Media buying can be incredibly lonely and isolating.
Now, if you were like me, I didn't know anyone else who was a media buyer. So I had to seek that out online. And bar none, Twitter/X is the best place to meet other media buyers and really get a sense of the conversations that are being generated today. Whenever I talk and work with media buyers, if they bring up something that they saw on Twitter or something that's like a popular point of discussion currently, I know that they're probably better than 75% of the other media buyers out there. That's a fact. You need your community, you need to connect with others. Now, the other thing you need to do, if you really want to get to that next level, is you need to share your stuff. You need to share your theories. I think a few years ago, all that you really needed was case studies, but to be honest, no one's going to want to work with you and no one is going to feel confident promoting you and putting trust in you if they don't see you exercising your stuff. Now, I talked about this a few times. I actually started this YouTube channel as a way to career hack. I figured out that if I started sharing my stuff on YouTube and build up a community and build up trust amongst decision makers, then I was going to be able to accelerate my career way faster. And one of my biggest salary jumps, I actually doubled my salary from 75K to 145K literally overnight, and it was because of this channel. You don't have to do video, but video really does help build trust. You don't even have to do YouTube. You can just do TikTok these days, which is wild. Number 5, you have to stay a student. You always have to be educating yourself.
Always be a student of the game and never stop learning.
Really just to be relentlessly curious. That means that you need to understand your craft. There's constantly things that are changing. You need to stay ahead of the times. You need to figure out a way to always stay up to date and current. And you need to understand how everything impacts your job as a media buyer.
Yeah, it's going to be important to generate discussions on Twitter or whatever, but it's also important to study consumer psychology, to learn about how the great people of advertising used to work. Another thing is you have to routinely test your theories. So sure, I have an approach to meta ads, but I also test out Charlie T stuff, Nick stuff, very hot stuff, because that's ultimately what's going to give my clients the best possible chance of success.
Challenge conventions.
Do things now to make things less ambiguous for you later. So name things clearly. You use differentiation when there are changes. There shouldn't be 2 ads with the same name. Make it so that when you're investigating in 6 months from now or a year from now, the investigation to figure out why did we do this? Why is this? That should only take seconds. Creating a better atmosphere, you're creating more transparency, you're making it easier for you and others to understand what's going on with less ambiguity.
And yeah, I don't like the idea of using cost caps. I hate it, but I've tested it quite a bit over the last 6 months to make sure that it wasn't right for the brands I work with. So you routinely really do have to test your own theories and test your own bullshit. And the final thing, which is actually something that I really wish there were training programs for, is you have to learn the art of client management, especially if you are agency side. And if you're in-house, you really have to learn the art of communicating data, sharing learnings and insights, and honestly just proving the worth that you do every day. So at a high level, you have to really understand how to set expectations with your clients and with your team. Honestly, a lot of times people just don't know what's possible, but you do. You're the expert, and you need to put some guardrails in place on what they can and can't expect from these platforms.
Being client facing, it's super important to upskill yourself on communication, something I have struggled with in the past, slowly getting better, but you need to understand how to set expectations, how to push back on certain things.
Another thing that I often see junior media buyers failing at is they don't have routine check-ins with their clients. Yeah, sure, maybe they have a bi-weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, but the Slack isn't very active. So when I was leading teams at the agency, I actually instructed them every Monday morning, give a quick Slack update on performance over the weekend, what you were going to be doing for the week. Maybe during the week, send the brand a few creatives you saw that might be applicable for them that you want to put on the roadmap, and then wrap up at the end of the week with another check-in on performance and what you actually got done. On the creative side, I also had them do creative retros with every single client where they would look at every single creative test that was launched, do a retro, and strategize for the month ahead. Another thing that a lot of media buyers really struggle with is how to communicate poor performance and why. And one of the worst things you can do is allow the client to reach out to you first about poor performance. But I mean, that's happened to everyone. The reality is, if you see something, say something. And oftentimes clients just want to hear what you're doing about it, what you are looking in on the back end, who you're trying to help pull in to see that they are being well taken care of. Again, this is the same for agency teams, but as well as internal brand teams. And the final thing is the art of pushing back. Sometimes you're going to need to push back on clients. It's incredibly uncomfortable, but you got to do it. Because again, you're the expert, and they're not. And it's funny, this is actually one of my favorite things that I've learned about being close with and friends with other media buyers, is learning their tactics and strategies for how to handle those really difficult client or internal team discussions. But I didn't want you guys to just hear from me. Now let's hear what our friends have to say.
You need to understand human psychology. Platforms might change, tactics will change, strategies will change, but one thing will stay the same, which is understanding human psychology.
Get out of the learning phase. If you're testing something and it doesn't get 50 conversions or at least close to it in a 7-day window, that ad is not ready to scale, so don't scale it.
As a media buyer, half of the job is pre-click, which means things that happen in the ad account. But what happens when someone clicks through your ad and they land on a broken website and conversion rate is awful? That obviously impacts your performance within the ad account. So you need to be able to diagnose issues at every level of the funnel, and you need to understand what solutions you can bring brands to make yourself a more effective marketer.
Things aren't black and white in media buying. So try and understand that there is not a right or wrong always. Usually there isn't. In terms of nuance, it's important to think about, like, why would someone have these opinions? What have they seen? And from my experience doing this, there's just so many variables and so much nuance in terms of like high spending ad accounts, low spending ad accounts, businesses, advertising for businesses that have high existing intent versus low existing intent, or brands that are well known versus not well known. All of these are like on a spectrum, and depending on, like, if you have a high spending, well-known brand that is in a category that's high intent and has a lot of people already know what the problem is, like, that is very different than the opposite of that. A small brand with low budget, with a high AOV, like, all of these different variables can create weird situations that you can't just apply this to that. So my experience has come a lot from understanding that and finding that out and trying to play with that and trying to think psychologically, not about the system, not about like, what does the algorithm want really? It's what do people want? What are the people doing? Why are these people responding in this way for this company, for these ads, versus like, why is the system responding to it? So deal with the nuance. It's not black or white. Try and find the how and the why behind stuff. That's what's really going to help you.
I would say, in my opinion, the most valuable media buyers that I've seen are actually more marketers than they are media buyers, and that they're really, really good, not just at, pulling the paid media levers, which really is just like an engine, like a traffic engine, but they're also really good at the, the inputs that really make media buying successful or unsuccessful. So they're really good at offers. They're very good at, setting up analytical models to understand performance. They're really good at, creative strategy and producing creative.
No one has all the answers. And so one way to do that is to go on Twitter, get involved up in people's feeds, start asking questions there, start making friends, start doing DMs, group DMs. If you can afford to join some private communities, like some private Slack communities, I would absolutely do that. They are worth their weight in gold. So develop your network of people, be friendly, be nice, and start making friends.
You really need to understand direct response copywriting, advertising fundamentals, what different stages of market awareness and sophistication mean, and also how to convert attention into purchases. If you don't understand advertising fundamentals and creative strategy, a media buyer who does is simply going to run laps around you. And this is because at the end of the day, you're buying attention. So regardless of the media buying strategy, if the actual ad creative that is being delivered to the end user isn't great in getting their attention, earning the click that can then turn into a purchase, you're not going to get anywhere.
The ability to just work hard in this industry, this particular job sometimes requires you to be active on the weekends. I don't really recommend it to everyone, but it is part of the job. Just like, if you're a doctor, you might have to get called into the hospital on a Saturday. It's just the same way, slightly more aggressive analogy, but same way that you might have to actually work on weekends.
Master your chosen platform. I see a lot of people trying to learn everything, or they're gonna go laser in on one and they try to learn from everybody. The point is, I've spent at least probably 100 million on Twitter, at least 100 million on Google. I spent $500 million on Facebook before most people got started. It's not just being good at the platform, but more importantly, what I learned after spending all of that money is that you can waste so much time and energy. Platform efficiency, mastering the platform is, from an operator's perspective, is learning how to do the job well and in a way that saves you as much time as possible, because the more time you spend with your hands on the keyboard, the more mistakes you're going to make. I was running Pizza Hut for a while, and I had to do a campaign for basically every market. Every DMA had their own marketing budget, and we had to have a different campaign for each one. And if I had to go in and manually build out all those campaigns in the way you're supposed to do it, it would have taken me 10 days to set up each lunch special, and that lunch special changed twice a week. It would have been inconceivable for one person to do the job. But when you learn how to do things in a time-saving manner that leverages the way platforms are designed, then you ultimately eliminate human error and can wildly outproduce the work of people doing things the slow, correct way. Nobody cares about how much time and effort you put in. Everybody cares about the result that comes out. Find a way to do it with the least amount of effort, and you're gonna find a way to do it with the least amount of error.
So if I was talking to a new media buyer, I would say, try to learn as much as you can online. If you're watching Dara's YouTube channel, you're already doing that. Try to soak up as much information as possible so that you can become a valuable media buyer to an agency. You can prove that you know your stuff just from watching really great courses and YouTube videos. Then once you're at that agency, you'll be able to work on ad accounts and learn from other media buyers, which is experience you just really can't replicate elsewhere.